All right, welcome to Sunday School, boys and girls. I hope you had a good week. How many of you remember last week's memory verse? Remember, it was 1 John chapter 3, verse 17. But whoso has this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? 1 John chapter 3, verse 17. All right, so what have we been talking about the last several weeks? That's right, we've been talking about compassion. And what is compassion? It starts in our heart and in our minds, doesn't it? It is to have pity and sympathy for others in their troubles and sorrows. In other words, when they're having difficulty, they're having a hard time, we have pity and sympathy for them. But compassion is not just a feeling. We talked about this last week. Compassion is not just a feeling. It is something that leads us to action. Compassion starts in our heart because of what we see, but it always leads to action, to doing something to help the person who has a problem. And last week we looked at how Jesus is our best example, of course, in every area, but he's our example in compassion. And here on the board you can see I have these verses, and we looked up every one of these verses last week and saw Jesus had compassion, and then he did something. And each one of these verses uses the word compassion, and then it tells us what Jesus did. Jesus saw many sick people, and he could do something for them. Being the Son of God, he could heal them. And so he didn't just say, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you." No, he healed them. He made them better. He made their situation better. In Matthew chapter 15, verse 32, we have the second time that Jesus fed a large group of people. But he looked out and he had compassion on them because they were hungry. And being God, Jesus could take a small amount of food and make it enough to feed, this time, 4,000. The first time, he fed 5,000. The second time, he fed 4,000 people. He didn't just feel sorry for them or say, it's not my problem. No, because he could do something, he did what he could do. And of course, what Jesus could do, we can't do. But there are things that we can do to show compassion. The next verse that we looked at, Matthew chapter 20, verse 34, Jesus healed the blind man. Being blind, of course, would not be fun, and it actually made their life very hard. Most blind people, when they would become adults in that time, they would become beggars. Now, that's not an easy life. That's a hard life. So Jesus, yes, he felt sympathy towards them. They had a hard time in life, but he could help them, and he healed them. He gave them back their sight. In Mark chapter 1, verse 41, he came across a man with leprosy. Now we know, we've talked about this before, leprosy was not able to be cured back then. So to have leprosy was like getting a death sentence. But Jesus saw the man, he had compassion on him, and Jesus, being God, could heal a person, even of leprosy, a disease that had no known cure. And so he healed the man, and of course his life became much better. In Mark chapter 5, verse 19, he meets a man who has a demon, an evil spirit in him. And we know that God is greater than Satan. He's more powerful than Satan. And so Jesus didn't just say, "Oh, poor man." He knew he had the power to make that evil spirit leave that man, to come out of that man. And so he cast out the demon. In Mark chapter 9 and verse 22, Jesus met a father who had a deaf and dumb. Now today we don't use this word this way. We would say he's mute. Dumb or mute means he can't speak. So he couldn't hear and he couldn't speak. And Jesus healed him. And of course, since he healed him, he could hear then and he could also speak. And of course, that made that boy's life much better. And of course, it helped his parents' life to be much better as well. In Luke chapter 7, verse 13, Jesus came across a funeral procession. In other words, a group of people walking with a coffin. They were going to bury someone. And the woman who was crying the most, she was a widow, and it was her boy, her son, that they were going to bury. Jesus looked at her. Yes, he had sympathy. Why? She had already lost her husband, and now her son had died. How very sad to lose two people. But in that day, women didn't really get jobs. They needed a man to help provide for them. She didn't have a husband, and now she doesn't have a son to help take care of her. And so Jesus raised the boy from the dead, making her happy because now she has her son back. But also he made sure, by doing that, he made sure that she was going to be provided for, because now her son can take care of her. Jesus saw each one of these hard situations that people were going through, and he knew that he was able to do something. And so he felt sympathy, and then he did something about it, and he helped them. Then we looked at Jude chapter 1, verse 22. Now Jude only has one chapter. So verse 22 of Jude says, of some having compassion, making a difference. And so we talked about how if you really have compassion, you will do something that makes a difference in that person's life. And then we talked about a boy who mowed lawns all summer long. He was working hard. He was earning money. He had a goal in mind. The money that he was earning from mowing the lawns, he was going to use to buy a bike. He wanted a red bike, a 10-speed bike. Now he already had a bike, but he wanted a newer one, a faster one, and he was willing to work hard for it. Just as he had worked that last job that he was going to have enough money to go buy the bicycle, something terrible happened. Not to him, though. A family that they knew, that their family knew, their house burned down. They lost everything in the fire. And on top of that, the father, the month before, had lost his job. And where they lived, there was a factory that had closed down. And so a lot of people lost their job, and he couldn't find a new job. Many people couldn't get a new job because there were so many people looking for jobs. And so people were trying to get together whatever they could to help them, money, food, clothes. And this boy realized he should do something. He had some money he could give to help them. Now he had about 200 euros. Will that meet the whole need that this family has? No. But he got to thinking, if I give away some of this money, I'm not going to have enough to buy the bike. I think God wants me to give all the money that I earned to this family. I can work hard next year and get a bike next year. I don't really have to have a bike. I have a bike. I don't need a new bike. But this family, they have nothing. And so he knew them. He saw the need. He felt sympathy for them. He realized he had something that he could give or he could do that could help them in their situation. And so he had compassion. He felt sorry, but it moved him to action. And so he had compassion. He was a good example of compassion. This week, I'm going to tell you a story about a family who had 4 boys. That's a lot of boys in one family, isn't it? Well, let me see if I can remember their names. There was Bob, Joe, and Jim, and John. Now, hopefully, I can keep all those names straight. Well, their dad had promised them that at the beginning of the summer, he would help them build a tree house. Now you can tell they have a big back garden here, and so they had room to do that. Some of us, we live in an apartment or our back garden's not big enough, we couldn't do this. But they could, and so their dad helped them. Actually, he did a lot of the work. They helped him build this tree house. And after they got it all built, oh, they wanted to spend that first day in it. The whole day they wanted it to be special, but guess what happened? No, nothing terrible happened to that. It started to rain really hard, and their mom and dad said, you can't play in the treehouse when it's raining out. While you might slip on the ladder and fall down, we are not sure yet if there's any leaks in the roof. We don't want you getting wet and getting sick. So you're going to have to wait for this special opening day of the treehouse until it's not raining. It rained every day for a whole week. And finally, they heard on the news that tomorrow was going to be bright and sunny. No rain for at least a week. Oh, they started thinking of all the things they could do to make that first day in the treehouse special. They decided they would make sandwiches, they would have a picnic, they would take all these different things out there. They wouldn't have to come back to the house. They could spend the whole day in their new treehouse. Oh, it's going to be so special. They were so excited they had a hard time going to sleep. I bet you felt like that before, haven't you? You've been so excited about what was going to happen the next day. You had a hard time going to sleep. Well, the next day when they woke up, there was a problem. The 2 younger boys, Jim and John, woke up looking like this. Can you tell what that is? That's right, they had chicken pox. Now, if you have chicken pox, can you go out and play? No, you have to stay in bed, don't you? And so that meant Jim and John were not going to be able to go out and play in the treehouse on that very first day. Oh, they were going to miss that special first day. And of course, they were hoping that their 2 older brothers, Bob and Joe, would wait and not play in the treehouse until they could all play in the treehouse for the very first time all together. Bob, he said, I've already had chickenpox. I'm not going to get sick. It's not my problem. I'm making my sandwiches and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to enjoy that first day. I'm sorry you can't go. Too bad. And Joe was kind of feeling the same way. But as Bob was making his sandwich, he remembered what his Sunday school teacher had said. That Jesus said that we're to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. In other words, we're to treat people the same way that we want them to treat us. Ooh, now if I was sick, how would I want my brothers to treat me? I would really want them to wait so we could have that first time all together. But I really, really can't wait. I want to be in that treehouse. We waited so long. At the same time, Bob came over and said, hey, Joe came over to Bob and said, hey, can I talk to you? You know, last night when Dad was reading the Bible together with us as a family, he talked to us about compassion. And he said that we all need to practice compassion. We need to have compassion. And remember he talked about Sometimes it costs you something. He said, you have to sacrifice sometimes to show compassion. Remember what he said, Bob? Yeah. We have to sometimes sacrifice our time. Sometimes we have to sacrifice money. And sometimes we have to sacrifice our plans. In other words, we have to allow our plans to be changed so that we can show compassion on someone else. And sometimes we have to give our time that we would have done something else, perhaps for ourselves, so that we can help someone else. Yeah, so what do you think, Bob? Joe said. Oh, you're right. And he told told Joe what he remembered the Sunday school teacher saying. I think as much as we want to be out there in the treehouse today, we need to wait until Jim and John can also go out there with us for that first time. And so they said, come on, let's go tell them. So they went over to Jim and to John and they said, okay, guys, we will wait until you can go out there with us. But we're going to do something fun anyways. You guys have to stay inside and you have to stay in bed. So we thought we would make blanket tents or blanket forts. You could stay in your bed and we could still have some fun. And we'll make the sandwiches and we'll just have a day of it here. Well, actually, probably a couple of days. Jim and John were so grateful. They were so happy. And you know, at the end of the day, well, actually, even before the end of the day, Bob and Joe were happy too. Now, why would Bob and Joe feel happy? Did they get to play in the treehouse that day? No. You know, God does something amazing for us. When we help others, it often makes them happy. And when we do things to make others happy, God gives us joy in return. And so, their day wasn't ruined after all. It was a happy day. Well, is everything going okay? Okay. I want to look at what will be our memory verse today. It's 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. Finally, be ye all of one mind. That means that we're to have unity. We're not to be fighting to have our own way. I don't know if you remember the first week we talked about compassion. Compassion was the opposite of selfishness. And selfishness is wanting our own way. Can we have unity when everybody's fighting for their own way? No, we can't. But when we have unity, we can do the next phrase, which says, having compassion one of another. God wants us to make a difference in other people's lives. And the next phrase says, love as brethren. We're supposed to love everybody as if they were part of our family. I mean, everybody in the church, if they're saved, we are brothers and sisters, aren't we? We're brothers and sisters in Christ. We're supposed to love one another. And then the next phrase says, be pitiful. This idea here of this word means to be merciful, to be forgiving. Often when somebody does something to us, do we want to forgive? No. We want to get even or get angry, don't we? But will that help us to have that compassion? Will that help us to love if we're not forgiving? Nope. And then the last phrase says, be courteous. That's a big word for be kind, have good manners. The way you talk to someone and the way you act towards someone should be kind. You know, if we're kind in the way we speak and the way we act, if we're forgiving and if we love, it'll make it a lot easier for us to have compassion on other people. Is compassion easy? No, but this will help to make it easier, won't it? Well, I have a second story to tell you also. There was a girl named Carol. And she's probably doing what all of you do when you come home from school, sitting down at the table, working on her homework. Well, today is a special day. Her friend Sarah invited her to come and see her cat's brand new kittens. And normally Mom says no because it's a school night. But Mom said if Carol got all her homework done and got her chores done, folding the laundry and setting the table, got those things done before dinner, then after dinner she could go over to Sarah's for a little bit to see the new kittens. Oh, Carol was so excited. She really wanted to see those new kittens. I don't know about you. She has some math homework and she is not very good at math. And so it was taking her so long. She still didn't even have her homework done and she was starting to get discouraged and think, I'm never even going to have my homework done. Say nothing about getting my chores done. I'm not going to be able to go see the new kittens. Well, her sister is older. Her sister's name is Patty, and she came in from the back garden. She had been jumping on their trampoline, and she was out of breath. She said, oh, Carol, you're still doing your homework. What's up, girl? Oh, Patty, I hate math. I'm not very good at it. And you know what Mom said, I have to have all my homework done and my chores. I have to fold the laundry and set the table. If I don't have those done before dinner, I'm not going to be able to go see Sarah's new kittens. And, well, I don't think it's going to happen. Oh, Patty said, well, I got my new book from the bookshop, and I'm going to go read it. Okay, well, Patty sat down. I don't know if you've ever done this when you're reading. Seems like you just keep reading the same sentence over and over again. You know why that was happening? Because she was thinking about something else. She was thinking about how she could help her sister, how she should show compassion to her sister. But it's not really my problem, Patty thought, and I really want to read my new book. It's an exciting story. Yeah, but Jesus wants me to have compassion, to make a difference in people's lives, even in my little sister's life. So she thought, you know what I can do? I'll get up. I won't even tell her. I'll just go and fold the laundry. And so she went and folded the laundry. Of course, with her being older, she folded it a lot faster. And she came out and she saw her sister still working on her homework. She said, are you almost done? And Carol said, well, I've got 2 more problems. She said, well, you hurry up because I've already folded the laundry for you. And you know what? I bet you can get those 2 problems done while I finish your chores by setting the table. And dinner's almost ready, so we better hurry. And so her sister Patty set the table, and guess what? Carol also finished the last 2 math problems. And so, because her sister had compassion on her and helped, she was able to go to her friend Sarah's house. Isn't that good of the big sister to help the little sister? It is, isn't it? Did it cost her something? Did she have to sacrifice something to show compassion to her little sister? Yeah, she had to sacrifice the time that she would have spent doing what she wanted to do, read her new book. And because she did, she made her sister happy. Do you think she was also happy? Of course, Jesus gives us joy when we put others first, doesn't he? All right, well, let's go over our verse again, and then I want you to work on learning it so you can say it word perfect next week. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren. Be pitiful. Be courteous. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. Let's do that one more time. Ready? Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren. Be pitiful, be courteous. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. All right, I want to sing a song with you. We've sung this before. I've got joy. Ready? I've got joy down in my heart, deep, deep down in my heart. J-O-Y down in my heart, deep, deep down in my heart. Jesus gave it to me, and nothing can destroy it. I've got joy down in my heart, deep, deep down in my heart. When Jesus gives joy, nothing can destroy it. And Jesus gives us joy when we show compassion to others, making a difference in their life. Well, I hope you enjoyed that lesson, but I also hope you look for ways to show compassion to others today and throughout the rest of this coming week. All right, bye-bye. We'll see you next week.